I have a really difficult life, I find. I have a really difficult life. I have done the same keynote at a couple of conferences before, including in the US at the Agile 2016 event. And it was quite interesting. Afterwards, a couple of people came to me, and some of them said, Jurgen, you are so humble, sharing all these failures about yourself. What humility. And I was like, okay, well, that's not the word that my friends would associate with me, but okay, whatever. Thank you. And then last week I did the same talk in my own country, in the Netherlands. Same stories, same experiences that I shared. And the next week I got an email message from someone that said, title, feedback. I thought, oh my God. I said, well, Jurgen, that was great, but you shared, you were always talking about your successes. Some people thought you were really arrogant. I thought, okay, make up your mind, please. Am I humble or am I arrogant? I have no idea. I hope it's somewhere in between, but you're going to decide. No idea where the Polish people sit between the Americans and the Dutch. We'll figure that out. I'm going to talk here about happiness and management, but I'm a sort of an imposter actually, because I'm not a manager at all. I'm a software engineer. I studied software engineering at the University in Delft in the Netherlands, and when I finished my job, I finished my studies, I was probably so bad at programming that my teammates begged our CEO to promote me away into management, where I could do less harm. And I had absolutely no idea how to work with people. For me, developers were computers on legs with hair. That's how I treated them. I gave them instructions, they never followed them. I tried debugging, even worse, I can tell you. Didn't work on programmers. So in hindsight, I was treating the organization as a machine. I was trying to optimize the individual parts. And that doesn't work that well, I noticed, as a manager. It sucked pretty much everything that I did. I worked at a couple of companies, including my own startup at the end of the 90s. It was a great period of my time. It was the startup internet hype years where I was rewarded. I got received an award as Entrepreneur of the Year in the Netherlands in 1999 for my business plan. Let that sink in for a moment. Not for my business, I got that award for my plan of a business. I was a really good writer after all. I mean, I could write fabulous plans, no worries at all. The business failed, however, like any other that I worked for. So at some point I thought I had a new business model. I thought maybe people should hire me and then get me a job at their competitor. I will manage them to destruction, I can guarantee that. I will take care of all your competitors. Just give me a job there. Anyways, some things have changed now. I travel the world and I talk about management, and sometimes apparently people want to hear about my stories, things that I've learned. Well, I learned a couple of things. But there's no one silver bullet. There's no silver bullet for management, no best way to organize an organization, organize a company. There's no holy grail, as the British would say. But who cares what the British think these days, right? But anyways, I found 7 silver bullets. I found 7 silver bullets in the last 15 years or so, me trying to manage various companies. And I'm going to give you examples. One thing that I learned was that change is easier for people when they share food. Psychological tip here. It's in Linda Rising's book, Fearless Change. One of the patterns, do food. So give them food, and then they will be may feel more positive about the change you suggest. So I invited colleagues to my house for dinner. 2 programmers, an account manager, a project manager, system administrator, the senior vice president of the pencils and paper clips. And I got them to my house, and when they arrived, I told them, and now you do the cooking. Surprise! So they were a bit flabbergasted, as you can imagine, but then they got started. The 2 programmers took care of the main course. The account manager and the system administrator, the account manager, project manager, took care of the appetizers. The system administrator said, all right, I will do the desserts. And being a system administrator, he did not allow anyone access to the chocolate. without permission. I'm filling out a form. And I was being a manager, which meant that I was just there watching other people doing hard work. Well, I prepared the environment. The kitchen was ready, the kitchen utensils, I did all the groceries, I did the invites, the environment was ready. So I managed the system, not the people. They did the work, but I managed the environment for them. And I nurtured the happiness in the kitchen. I couldn't make people happy, but I saw them happy cooking with each other. Another example. I was speaking with my CEO a good number of years ago, and I said that we never celebrate anything around here. We should celebrate more. Always rushing from one project to the other. He said, what do you suggest? I said, well, maybe something makes a lot of noise. Because we had a big open office space, a former factory that was redesigned in Rotterdam, my hometown. And I said, okay, good. 2 weeks later, he came to my desk with a big copper ship's bell. He said, here's your bell. Now do something useful with it. I was like, whoa, awesome. No idea where he stole that, but anyways, awesome. So I went with the bell to the office police, the office manager, I mean, of course. And I had her place the bell next to the coffee machine. And from that moment, anyone could ring the bell for any reason. Could be a new project delivered, could be a baby delivered by a person, not by the company, of course. And the bell made a huge fucking noise in the office, and then 150 people would gather around the coffee machine. They came from all corners, and they would gather around the coffee machine to learn what the celebration was all about. Of course, they quickly figured out that once you heard that sound, there would probably be cookies and cake. Run, run, before it was all gone. And when they were there near the coffee machine, they would listen to the person who rang the bell, who would explain what there was to celebrate. The last time I heard the bell was when the CEO announced to the whole company that I had just quit my job. It's a true story. Anyways. So what we see here is adding a bit of playfulness to the office. Let's hang up a bell. It makes a lot of noise. Awesome. And I was running experiments as a manager. I tried things. I thought, can I make the environment a more playful environment? Can I change the culture so that people just drop their work and celebrate? Well, it turns out that I could. And by increasing these experiments, I started learning faster. I have another one. Another example from an experiment that I'm running now. I noticed that lots of managers love contracts. Ooh, they love agreements. I just signed another agreement today. Somebody had me sign an NDA, stupid non-disclosure agreement. I hate those things. But anyways, people love, particularly managers love agreements. And I find agreements limits people's freedoms and make them less happy. So I decided as an experiment to work together with my team of 12 people right now without any agreements whatsoever. We have no contracts. This is how they feel about that. They seem pretty happy to me. At any moment when one person says, I would like to work from Bali at half of my productivity, I say, well, we have no contract, so I can't say no. It says it doesn't limit your location, so go ahead. We'll figure out how to make it work. Or when they want to change their job titles, well, we have no job titles, actually. They come up with their own role names, such as we have a zookeeper, we have a chief geek, we have a project bottleneck. I'm not making this up. This is what they come up with. My own role is Emperor God Overlord on the team. Note the initials. And I think these roles also add, again, a little bit of playfulness. And some people find this innovative. Ooh, without any agreements. Yes, and it works for 1.5 years already, nearly 2. Nobody is hurt in any way. And that helps us to focus more on meaningful products and services, in my experience. And less focus on time and location. No, we want to build services with meaning. So, those were the 7 silver bullets. Let's review them again, one by one. Other people have also written about purposeful companies. It starts with why, Simon Sinek, I mentioned him during the lightning talk, we have to offer products and services with meaning. But we can only do that when we innovate, not only in product and service delivery, which is what Agile is all about, but also in the way we manage around that. That means we have to increase the pace of learning. We have to learn faster because the environment is changing faster and faster. Naturally, that means that we have to run more experiments. because researchers and scientists say that learning is optimal when we run experiments. Well, we only run experiments when we play. This is what children figured out long ago, right? We run experiments of trying things out, playfulness, and we only do that when we feel happy. When children feel happy, when we feel happy, we run experiments and we play. And we cannot make people happy as managers, but we can definitely create an environment, a system, for that increases the chance that they're happy. And there they are, the 7 silver bullets that I found in the last 15 years or so. All of what I do is basically comes down to these 7 silver bullets. And are there any managers in the room by any chance? Anyone? Any managers? Yeah. Oh, good number of hands. All right. So for the managers in the room, I have a special version of this slide to make it easier to understand. With everything displayed as 7 boring bullet points. And with an eye for detail, me being a perfectionist, I obviously use the fonts Times New Roman and Comic Sans, as you can see. Anywho, and there's something going up, which is always important, some kind of clip art diagram. These 7 silver bullets help you to be more modern in the way you manage organizations. And I have a couple more examples about that. By the way, is anyone able to get me a bit of water? Because I lack a glass or bottle of water over there. All right, awesome, thank you. I was once at a conference in Barcelona, Agile Lean Europe conference, and Jim McCarthy was speaking there. You are such a cool dude, thank you so much. Jim McCarthy was speaking there. Jim McCarthy wrote A Software for Your Head and other books, and he said, you have one thing wrong in the Agile community. You're always focusing on co-location. Always about co-location. Thou shalt have the Scrum teams in the same room, otherwise you end up in hell, or something like that. He didn't say it like that. That was just my interpretation, okay? And Jim said, it is not about getting people in the same room. The goal is not geographical closeness. The goal is mental closeness between the people. And I sat in the audience and I thought, yes, of course, that's it. I was always a little bit troubled with the dogmatic message, you should have your Agile team in the same room, right? Because the trends are in the opposite direction. Let's just be honest about that. Distributed teams, dispersed teams, flex time, remote working, virtual offices. There's a bigger chance nowadays you see each other at the Starbucks somewhere in the city than at the office itself. So we should find other means, other ways to achieve mental closeness on the team. How can we do that when we are not sitting next to each other? I thought mind maps are interesting practice that people use to dive into topics. What if the topic is a colleague, a team member? Let's mind map ourselves, I thought. It's an experiment. I'm going to run an experiment. I made a mind map of me. This is me, Jurgen, hobbies, family, friends, whatever. I started mapping everything. And I asked my teammates to do the same thing. For example, this is Lisette, our remote office manager, or zookeeper as she calls herself. And then the idea is, with this practice of personal maps, is that you offer your personal maps to the team and then they have to ask questions. Because you're not allowed to present your personal map. Because we all know what the extroverts will be doing, right? They will go on and on and on and on and on and oh my God, it never ends, them talking about themselves. Not allowed, not allowed. So to level the playing field, you offer your personal map and then other people ask questions. Such as, hey Lisette, why did you have pink hair over here? And then Lisette said, oh, I was 19 years old and I was young and did silly things. And then we have a great discussion about the silly things when we were young or feeling young, right? So that's the kind of conversation that we have to achieve mental closeness. Here's another one. This one is from Hanu. And as you can see, which is perfectly obvious, Hanu is from Finland because there's almost nothing on the personal map, as you can see. My friends in Finland, and maybe Rina, where is Rina? I have no idea where Rina, pride themselves on the fact that they never use too many words. Yeah. They're very economical. They're talented at being very economical with the language. They have to be, because in the Finnish language, the words are like 5 times longer than any other language, right? My name is Hanu. I'm from Finland. All right, then the questions got started. Where in Finland, Hanu? Helsinki. Ultimately, we got a conversation going, of course. Hanu is awesome. By the way, this joke got the biggest laugh in Finland. I kid you not. They're such cool people. Awesome. And I saw Hanu for the first time face-to-face earlier this year. We were in a breakfast in a hotel, and it did not feel like this was our first meeting, because we had already achieved some mental closeness. I knew the name of the kids and the spouse, a favorite vacation destination, hobbies, because we talk about that stuff. There's mental closeness. That's good. Here's another one. This one is from Sergey, who's obviously our software architect, as you can see. He's awesome. I love Sergey. And none of these maps are good or bad. They're people expressing themselves in the way they prefer. And some use tools, and others use crayon markers or colorful pens or whatever. This is Dave from one of my earlier workshops. And what do we have here? Terry, wow, awesome, very colorful. You can see the way people create their personal maps already reveals something about the people that they are. That's fascinating. A little bit of insight into their brains. Julio, oh, engineering manager, of course, awesome. So cool. So the nice thing about this is that this was just an experiment. I thought, seems to make sense. Let's try if this works. And now it is a standard part of our onboarding process. Whenever we have a new person joining us, we insist on seeing their personal map. Right? And we're going to ask questions for 30 minutes, and you can ask us questions because our personal maps are still on Google Drive, and you can ask us anything. It worked. I have another example. Did you know that the word management is actually from the Italian word maneggiare? It means handling horses. Isn't that interesting? Management is not about dealing with a machine. It's about dealing with a living system, something that breathes, that you have to nurture and feed, and hopefully it doesn't bite your ears off. Right? That's like an organization. It's something that is alive. Now, sometimes I've literally heard at Scrum gatherings and Agile conferences, we don't need managers. We have self-organizing Scrum teams. Let's just put the managers on the list of impediments. The Scrum Master will deal with them. I'm not really sure. I'm actually pretty sure that it doesn't work that way. I believe that to use this metaphor, the fully self-organizing system, the fully self-organizing company or team, that is a wild horse. There's nothing wrong with wild horses, but I'm not going to sit on them and slap their ass and say, yeehaw, and then hope that they run in the right direction. There's not the kind of leadership management that I find leads to useful results. So, at some point, somewhere, there will be a fence, and maybe the reins and the spurs and whatnot. I have no experience with horses whatsoever, so I'm just making this up on the spot. The metaphor stretches quite well. We need to manage and lead the horse. And this is something managers suck at. They have absolutely no idea how to draw the fence. You can self-organize all you want over here until there, and then there's another horse over there or something like that. So what managers usually do is they pick between dictatorship and anarchy. Either I make the decision or you make the decision. They don't know that there are steps in between, which makes it a lot easier once you realize that. For example, let me take vacation days. Let's say vacation days. If I was a dictator, I would say you go on vacation in July from the 27th to August the 3rd. You go on vacation from August the 4th to August 17th to Barbados, by the way. You go on vacation, etc. That's me being a dictator. Right? Doesn't work like that at most companies, I'm quite sure. Level 2 is sell. You try to convince people, but you still make the decisions, so hardly any difference. Level 3 is let them tell you what they want. That is the traditional approach at some companies. People say, can I please go on vacation from June the 12th to June 27th? And the manager says, well, for this time then. Right, yeah, all right, yeah, I'm feeling in a good mood. That's level 3. The manager decides still, based on input. Level 4 is agreement, that is consensus. I call it the typical Dutch approach. We talk and talk and talk until most people have died of exhaustion. And then the survivor makes the decision, basically. The level 5, it flips to the other way. So now the team makes the decision, but with level 5 with my input. It is like servant leadership, it is coaching, consultancy. Me as a manager, I have some really good ideas about vacations, but you figure it out with my suggestions. Level 6 is you do whatever you want, but please inform me. It would be nice for me to know. And level 7 is You arrive at the office, and every day is a complete surprise who is there and who is not. That's anarchy, right? Could be useful sometimes. But I like this scale because it's sort of symmetrical. 3 is the opposite of 5, 2 is the opposite of 6. And you not only delegate as a manager things to the team, to the self-organizing team, there's also stuff that self-organizing teams don't want to do. They delegate that to management. They expect the environment to be ready for them. Handle the kitchen, please, so that we can get started once we get the work assignments and then be productive. We delegate to each other. It's a more respectful relationship, I find. You can visualize that. I like that as a delegation board. If in case there are any unclarities about the boundaries, just visualize it. This board says vacation days level 3. All right, that's a bit traditional, I suppose. Team membership. Oh, that's level 5. That means the teams decide who is on which team, but with input from the manager. Give some suggestions, maybe increase diversity of skills over there and diversity of gender over there, as Pavel just suggested. That was me being a coach. And I have some pictures of actual companies applying such delegation boards. Like this one is from Bulgaria, but it's actually a Dutch board. The connoisseurs would be able to see that this is actually created by a Dutch company. Let me tell you something about Dutch people that you might not know. Dutch people always struggle with freedom versus order, right? We value both quite a lot. So, for example, has anyone ever flown into Amsterdam Schiphol Airport? Anyone? Good number of hands. Yep. All right. Did you have a look out the windows before landing, and could you see how nice and straight all the fields are down there? It's very rectangular. Yeah, I see some people nodding their heads. Very rectangular and squarey, as if Mondrian himself painted our landscape in Holland. Now, most of what you see down there is probably marijuana. Right? But we Dutch, we don't care what you grow, as long as you grow it in a straight line. That's important. We cannot have the marijuana get all entangled with the tulips. That will be chaos. Our brains can't handle that. So we have a bit of the same problem here, the same issue here. Like, for example, this says seating. That's level 1. Oh, that's a seating arrangement for the team. All right. So, Hendrik, you sit on that chair, not that chair. That is your chair. You sit there. You can't use these chairs. That is your chair. Perfect. Maybe with little nameplates for everyone. Seating arrangement. Well, at the same time, salaries are delegated all the way to level 6. You pay yourself anything you want. I don't care. Whatever. As long as you stay seated on the right chair. You cannot pay yourself a salary from that chair, Henrik. It has to be from that chair. Otherwise, that would be chaos, right? We can't have that. We can't have that. That's Dutch for you. We have a few more. This one is from Poland, where they invented the new level 0. That probably means I'm not even going to tell them what I decided. Screw them. Love it. And this one is from Germany, complicated. Love it, with lots of rules, lots of sticky notes. Actually, this was a fantastic blog post, because this was a company in Hamburg, where they described that the different roles have different territories. Like if you have a software architect or something, make different kinds of decisions compared to a quality assurance engineer, whatever. I'm just making it up, but that makes sense to me. Or if you just arrived at the company last week as a junior, you cannot make the same kinds of decisions as someone who's been around for 10 years. You don't get the corporate credit card in the first week. Right? So these kinds of boundaries, they make sense to me. Just clarify it for people. That makes it fair, easy to understand, and then they can self-organize all they want. There's a little game called Delegation Poker that some of you are perhaps familiar with, that you can download to play with delegation. Maybe ask each other. It's a funny game. Basically, you ask the horse where it thinks the fence is. I think it's over here. Wrong. Ha 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 ha. It's over there. Great exercise. So that's delegation. Maybe it helps you. I was CIO for a couple of years, 7 years actually, for a company of 200 people, and I introduced Scrum. and was a good idea because apparently things worked better afterwards. Certainly everyone was happy with it, managers and employees, customers, and turnover in the company dropped from 17% to nearly 0. It's suddenly getting very dark. I hope everyone stays seated. I can see you when you sneak out now, by the way. Anyways, so turnover dropped to nearly 0, and I was proud of that. It meant that people were happier in the company after that small transformation. All right. Well, I will use it off the top of my head, and who cares? Whatever. So I have this question that it leads to. So we have an interesting new method, a practice that was introduced in the company and that led to people being happier. Introduction of Scrum helped people be happier in their jobs because their turnover dropped. Now, is it usually that the successful practices help people be happier in their jobs? Is success leading to happiness? Or is it happiness leading to success? Is it usually the happiness of people leading to success? I see a few lights going on. All right, good. Then I can ask the hands, number of hands going up or down. So how many of you think that it is usually success of a company that makes people happier? Let me see some hands. That's a good number of hands. All right. I would say that's about 23.2% of the audience. Okay. And how many of you think it is the opposite? It's usually happy people that leads to companies being more successful. All right. That is a slight majority of 78.1 or something. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Because I agree. I basically agree, but I am not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure, because I have read some mixed messages. I read a quote by Sean Aker from his book, The Happiness Advantage, and basically he agrees, there we have. We now know that happiness is the precursor to success. It comes first, before success comes happiness. But Phil Rosenzweig, who's a professor, much smarter than I am, he said, does employee satisfaction lead to high performance? Probably, but the reverse effect is stronger. Interesting. Interesting. But he said satisfaction, not happiness. Is that the same thing? Some researchers say yes, others say no. Headaches I get of this, I tell you. Headaches, so complex. But despite all the complexity, what we know for sure is that happy people are more productive. Even the most cynical of CEOs should have a reason to help the workplace be happier, because this could be your profit margin. That 12% of extra productivity. Now I hope it is not only about extra productivity, because I think people deserve to be happier in their jobs, because it's a third of our lifetimes that we spend working. But even if you're cynical, it makes sense. So, what is it that helps people be happier in their jobs? Interesting question. I once researched this when I was in Argentina, which was a good place to do, because Argentina is a fascinating country. Everyone is happy, but nothing works. Fascinating. You arrive at the airport and there's not a single cash machine where you can get any money, and all of them have different error messages. It's a Cambrian explosion of error messages all over Buenos Aires. But they're happy dancing the tango and having good food, etc. Fascinating. And always consistently ranked across among the lists of happiest countries on the planet. So I was there in Buenos Aires 3 years ago or something, researching the research about happiness, doing a bit of meta research, so to speak. And I found the 12 steps to happiness, the things that were mentioned again and again across all those research reports. These are the 12 steps. Thank someone every now and then and be appreciative to your colleagues. Give something to another person as a gift or whatever. Help someone who's in need of assistance. Eat healthy foods, make them available. Exercise, work out regularly, sleep well, sleep sufficiently, experience new things, try new experiments, hike, go outside, enjoy nature, fresh air, meditate, mindfulness practices, socialize, hang out with other people, with friends, have a purpose in life, a goal, and finally, smile whenever you can, even when you have to fake it. That's what the research says. If you're not feeling entirely happy, just paint that smile on your face. And then your brain will basically be tricked into thinking that you are a happier person, and you will be a happier person. There's a reason why people say smile when you're not smiling, because it actually helps. I find that interesting. Now, I call these 12 steps to happiness because, as Sean Aker said in his book, there is no destination. There is no outcome. It is the path itself that you should take. Happiness is a path, not a destination. It is a decision every day, not an outcome. You can decide to do these things on a daily basis as an individual, but also contribute as a manager. So, for example, what can you do as a manager? Well, I once invited my teams back then outside in the park to do some code reviews. They thought it was really weird. I told them, just print some classes, interfaces, whatever, I don't care, and we go outside and review them outside over there in the park, in the sun. I almost had to like drag them from their caves into the fresh air, and they were like, oh my God, it's so bright, what is that thing up there? And that's the sun, you idiot. No, you can't swipe it away. Now, go and sit over here. And then we had a code review, and that was fun. And then we did it quite often. I count that as hiking. It was only 50 meters, I admit. It was a long way for some people. So, and it was getting outside into the fresh air. And I know other companies who contribute, such as, for example, I was in Barcelona, where a company had an alegría room, a happiness room. It was one of the best places to work in Spain. And that was a meditation, mindfulness room that was decorated by the employees themselves, where they could go to apply mindfulness practices. How wonderful. And this was supported by the people development support, as they call themselves. Not HR, they renamed themselves the people support. Fantastic. So there are always things that you can do as managers. Always things to try, experiments to run. And you can download this poster, of course, shove it in the face of your manager and ask him or her, what are we doing here to make this a happier workplace? And definitely what you should be doing is, where is experience? Over there, experience. Try new things. Even when your experiments fail, you will have a new experience, and that counts. It makes you a happier person because of the new experience. Let me share some more experiments with you. Culture. Ooh, I heard the word mentioned a couple of times here at the conference. Fascinating topic. Let me start with this slide. Some of you have already seen it. Don't give away the answer if you already know, if you have seen this slide before. This is a screenshot that I stole from a company. And it says, our values are responsibility and sustainability. Now, from which company do you think did I steal this screenshot? From which company's website? Shell, not Shell, no. Volkswagen, yes. Our values are responsibility and sustainability. Uh-huh. Right. I sometimes think this might be a rare case of German humor that we see here. Anyways. And they laughed about this in Germany as well. Really, Germans, awesome people, I swear. So our values are responsibility, sustainability. What do you know? Do you know what the real value, the real purpose was at Volkswagen? Anyone? What was communicated in the company? Not money. Not money. It's something else. Something more specific. Be number one. Yes. Market share. Beat Toyota. Be the biggest car seller in the world. That's a really concrete goal. Yeah, that was communicated. Oh, they had this on the website, but what's important for them was be the biggest. So they became the biggest for a couple of weeks. Until, as the British say so beautifully, the shit hit the fan. Love that expression. Thank you so much for introducing it in our language. And what we miss here is what Agilists would recognize as a feedback cycle. Is what we say that we're doing also what we're actually doing. There should be a feedback cycle between those. Close the gap, narrow the gap between those. The researchers say the espoused values versus the enacted values. So what can we do to close that gap, to narrow the gap? My team has a Slack channel. We use Slack as a communication tool, obviously, because we're fully distributed. And one of them is called Value Stories. is just a channel where we discuss things that we sometimes find difficult, or that we think probably relate back to our values and that we want to have a discussion about. Such as, I don't know, a customer orders a product and then goes on vacation for 2 months. And then the product is, of course, sent back because he wasn't at home. And then when he comes back, oh yeah, can you send it again? And like, what? That costs us extra shipping fee. So what do you do then? Do you ask the customer to pay that extra shipping fee, or do you place a hand over your heart? All right, for this time then. That is an ethical decision, right? What kind of company do you want to be? So we have these discussions on Slack. And the problem with many companies is they have these values, these lists of values, posters that say our values are responsibility, openness, honesty, respect, clarity, blah, blah, etc. Oh, and focus also. But can anyone remember those values? When I go to the supermarket for 3 items, I come back with 2. And I'm like, oh my God, I forgot the milk again. And that's only 3 items. I can't even remember those for 2 hours. So I can definitely not remember 7 items on the corporate poster for values. But people remember stories. They remember the stories that we discussed on the Value Stories channel. And I see other companies telling stories with each other. They call them sometimes culture books or value books or whatever, handbooks, doesn't matter. The idea is the same. Compare what is happening with the values that you pretend to have. Is it the same thing? And Zappos is a famous example. You can download their culture book. Looks very colorful, lots of illustrations and photos. And IDEO is a famous company that has the little book of IDEO with values such as be optimistic. Well, are they optimistic? I would like to know as an employee. So where are the stories? So compare those actual values with what is in the defined somewhere by a CEO or committee or whatever. Is it the same thing? I like this quote I found in Frederic Laloux's book of Reinventing Organizations. Frederic said, many organizations have annual value days where people just get together to discuss what we do, what are our purpose values, and inquire how we live up to them. You see that? How we are actually doing what is on the website. Is that what we're doing? Are we being responsible and sustainable? Maybe not. Then we need to do something. There's one little problem I have with this practice. It happens only once per year. Slow feedback cycle. We know, Agilists know, we need faster feedback. We need storytelling every week. Maybe as part of retrospectives. Maybe on the Value Stories channel. Right? Do it more often. I found this quote on Twitter last year. The culture of any organization shaped by the worst behavior the leader is willing to tolerate. Got thousands of retweets. Many people recognize this in some way or another. If something bad is happening and you do not intervene as a manager or leader, then that behavior will be basically the baseline of your culture. Everything else will grow from there. I prefer the positively phrased version, which is my own adaptation, which is the culture of any organization shaped by the best behavior the leader is willing to amplify. Sadly, this did not get thousands of retweets yet. I'm expecting your help here. And I think we need a bit of both, right? We need a negatively phrased version and we need a positively phrased version. As some people say, it's like in marriage. For every point of criticism, you have to compensate with 5 compliments to make it even. And in companies, it's probably the same thing. You have to intervene every now and then make sure you make 5 times more compliments for the good things that are happening, that you're not only being negative. So that's values, that's culture, that's how you grow a culture in a business. I have 2 more examples to share, 2 more experiments to show you. Let me see how I'm doing time-wise. Oh, I'm doing fine. All right, good. We can turn off the light another time because I have plenty of time. No, just kidding. Please don't. All right. This practice is about it's about money. Favorite topic for some, I have noticed. Did you know, do you know about the bonus system, the traditional bonus system? Has anyone ever heard of that? Yeah, good number of hands go up. All right, yeah. So it works like this, for those who've never heard of it. People get a steady amount of income throughout the year, and then by the end of the year, some people get a lot more. And usually managers apply what scientists call Zipf's law, or the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule, which means 80% disappears in the pocket of the manager, and then 20% goes to everyone else. That's so nice. To share that 20%. And this repeats itself in a fractal way all the way down the hierarchy, so that by the time you get to the bottom, nothing is left. Now, needless to say, this doesn't motivate many people, doesn't make them happy. They think managers do not do a good job distributing this money. So some people say we should pay people equally, same amount throughout the year. Not necessarily the same salary, but at least keep it steady. No silly surprises and bonuses. It only annoys everyone. I understand the sentiment, but I disagree. I disagree, for a very important reason. Did you know that 70% of drivers think they are above average drivers? Makes no sense. I read that among college professors, 80% think they are above average college professors. I'm pretty sure among professional keynote speakers, 90% think they are above average. This has been researched on Teams. Actually, I read it on ScienceDaily.com half a year ago. They asked people on Teams, how much did you contribute to the overall team's outcome, to the team performance as a percentage? They asked everyone anonymously, of course, did that across many teams. And then on average, the total sum was 140%. Makes no sense. Where did that 40% come from? Right? People's overestimation. They think they did more. Actually, this correlates with team size. So the bigger the team, the larger this overestimation effect, which makes sense, because the bigger the team, the less you know of what they did over there on the team. But you sure know that you did a lot. You worked all night yesterday night. They possibly cannot have worked all night over there on the other side of the team. Right? So what happens when you pay people a steady amount of income without differentiating between those who contributed a bit more versus those who contributed a bit less? You can do that, but the effect will be that 70 or 80% of the people will think they are underpaid. They think they deserve more. It won't be true, but they're and they're people. They're humans, just like I am. Right? So they overestimate. That's why my team and I do something else. We have a steady amount of income, and every now and then there's a little bit extra, just to indicate who contributed a bit more versus who contributed a bit less. But I do not decide. This is how we do that. Every team member has 100 points, and at the start of the month, we get 100 points, and then the rest of the month we credit each other for their performance. So 10 points to you for helping me out yesterday, I appreciate that. 5 points to you for your super fast response times. 15 points to you for not killing me when I screwed up the web server. I'm so sorry, so sorry. Very kind at solving that. And these points accumulate over time. And as the business owner, every month I set aside some bonus money based on the performance of the whole group, of the whole team. So some months is more than others. In the summer months it was nothing because there's low season, so we didn't have any surplus. But as a business owner, I basically increase the jackpot every month, depending on the performance of the whole team. Now the only thing left to do is to pick a good moment to decide how do we distribute that money based on the peer-to-peer credits that everyone received from each other. This is how we do that. I don't hear sound. Can we have sound? Yeah.
Okay, dice.
Oh, come on, big money, big money.
Everyone give it a kiss. Come on, lucky dice. We love you, we love you. Oh, it's a 6.
No way!
Can you see that?
So we have a simple company rule. Yeah, sound can go off. Thank you so much. We have a simple rule, company rule. At the start of the month, one person throws a dice. And if that person throws a 6, and this has to be recorded, has to be on video, if that person throws a 6, we pay out the bonus money. No 6, no bonus. That's it. Easy enough. Everyone understands it. The reason we do it like this is so that none of us can predict when it is bonus payout time. Because we all know what happens when people are promised a bonus in December. They will have spent the money before they even received it. And when it is less than expected, as it often is, because people overestimate, they will be demotivated again. You can never do it well, basically. Not on my team. They feel like they have their own little Las Vegas casino every month. And they can only win, which is awesome. Now, of course, my team likes it, but some people say, oh, Jurgen, does this become a popularity contest? Is it like the popular people get all the credits from everyone? And what about the introverts here? What about people who don't communicate that well? Well, yeah, you'll have to address all these potential issues. I'm not saying that it will emerge, but it could emerge. That's possible. But you already have a popularity contest with a traditional bonus system. It is called kissing the boss's ass. That's the traditional popularity contest already in place. What we have on my team is basically democratized ass kissing. I could tell you, I have to kiss a lot of asses to get a bit of bonus money on our team. This is ridiculous. I mean, yesterday was Andy's ass, today was Lizette's ass, tomorrow it's Peter's ass. I see asses everywhere, all week long. It drives you nuts. And yeah, that's what it means to work on a team where people are trying to evaluate each other's performance. And silly enough, I can never predict when I get points. Sometimes I think, I did something great. This is definitely going to give me points. Nothing, nada, zip. And something I get points, and I say, what for this? I didn't know you appreciated that so much. I did that. I just did that in the spur of the moment. And all of that is fine. And all of that is, in my opinion, it is in line with crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, delegating decisions to the crowd. As you see, I'm not managing the system, but the people, I'm managing the system around them. Last example, and then we wrap up. I told you about the bell, ringing the bell. The question is, when do we ring it? Do we ring it for celebrating successes, or do we also ring it for failures? There are people who say we should celebrate failure every now and then. There are fail conferences. Did you know that? There are fail conferences where people get together and celebrate failure. Yay, I wasted 1 million euros. Woo! Let's celebrate. How many of you think that every now and then it is fine to ring the bell to celebrate a failure? Let me see some hands. That's okay. There's nothing wrong celebrating failure. All right, good number of hands. How many of you say, well, it could be better just to celebrate success? So let's celebrate success. It's better than celebrating failure. All right, again, a good number of hands. How many of you say, let's just celebrate everything? Who cares? Failure, success, party all the time. Everyone, of course. Makes no sense, people. Okay, so this is a diagram that I based on the work of Donald Reinertsen, who wrote the book called Principles of Product Development Flow. Has anyone read it? Anyone read it? You're lying, it's unreadable. Donald is 10 times smarter than all of us combined, basically. The book is full of information theory, queuing theory. Halfway, I gave up. But I think I got the gist of what Donald meant. And I created this diagram based on my insights. And I checked it with the Donald, and he said, yeah, that's pretty much what I meant. It's okay. Wow, thank you. Oh, awesome. So, skip the book, check this diagram. Don't tell Donald. Don't tell Donald. Donald says, when people say celebrate failure, that doesn't make much sense. Because they celebrate this part, which includes us doing things of which we already know that failure is almost guaranteed, which is making mistakes. Why would we celebrate making mistakes? Makes no sense. It makes sense to celebrate successes, but there's a catch. In many companies, this is the only reason why they celebrate and ring the bell, for people achieving successes. And when you do that, you create a culture where you incentivize people to repeat good practices. They will move in that direction, right? And then who is going to run the experiments in the middle? Who is going to do this? The learning. Because learning is optimal when we run experiments, as I told you earlier. As Donald says in his book, learning is optimal when there's a 50-50 chance of succeeding or failing. Then, according to information theory, information density is highest. I have no idea what I'm saying right now. I'm just quoting Donald here. Just quoting Donald. So learning is optimal when we run experiments. And I call this a celebration grid as a reminder for people to not only celebrate successes, but also celebrate learning. It is not the failure that we celebrate when we ring the bell. We should celebrate the learning, even in the cases when we failed. That's okay, as long as it's a celebration of the learning that we incentivize. We incentivize learning. So I call celebration grid is basically the visualization of what some people call the 3 standard retrospective questions of Scrum or whatever. What should we start doing? Run new experiments. What should we stop doing? Anything that ends at the bottom. What should we continue doing? Anything that lands at the top. Right? So these are examples of what I did in my workshops. At the end of the workshop, I have people stand around a whiteboard, flip chart, and then add sticky notes. And do we have examples of experiments? Do we have examples of good practices that worked or good practices that did not work? That can happen. Or stupid mistakes that worked. I'm really good at this area, I can tell you that. Lots of stupid mistakes that I can get away with. I can still have a success. And you can do these in retrospectives as well. As a reminder, sometimes I draw a funnel at the top to indicate every now and then we should run a new experiment. Here's another picture from a Dutch company. You can see that they're Dutch because they finished their retrospective just before 5 o'clock. Yay, done. Let's go home. Woo. So, those were some examples of practices that I have tried. Many of them succeeded, some have failed, or I'm still working on them. And hopefully you recognize the 7 silver bullets. Manage the system for a bit more happiness. I don't manage the people, they manage each other. But I manage the kitchen around them, basically, the environment. And through more playfulness, do silly things, like throw a dice or whatever. That's silly. Hang up a bell and ring it. That makes a huge noise. Add some playfulness, run lots of experiments, and thereby accelerate your learning. And then hopefully we innovate the way we manage the companies and have more meaningful products and services. All of that is in this book, Managing for Happiness. It's a re-release of the workout book, which I published myself, was self-published book. Basically, I sold all my family and friends 20 copies or more until they got sick of it and asked, please, can you sell them to somebody else? And then publisher Wiley came to me and said, hey, can we take over the publishing of that book? I said, hell yes, because my friends are sick of it. And said, okay, cool. And by the way, we're going to give it a new title. I said, what? Imagine someone coming up to you and say, we're going to rename your child. How would you feel about that, Henrik? Yeah. So that's what they did. So I had to get used to the idea, as you can imagine. But they did a good job. I think the title is better than the other one. They said this title sucked, workout. Terrible title, they told me. So Managing for Happiness it is. And that's it. I have lots more stories to tell, but maybe for another time. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great rest of the night, and hopefully great day tomorrow.